Hello and welcome to the Counselor Complete OMS training series. In this overview, we are going to address areas and workflows that are specific to speech pathologists. We're going to go through the process of writing and sending professional reports as well as progress notes. We're going to look at a little bit on the scheduling front and managing information there as well. We're going to start here in the patient profile, and we're going to jump right to the appointments visits tab. Now, one thing you'll notice here is that the appointments are separated out from the visits. So the appointments refer specifically to what is on the schedule, whereas the visits refer to when the patient or the kid actually came into the clinic. Typically, you'll see a pretty good one-to-one ratio of an appointment and a visit. Of course, the exception being if the patient no-showed or was canceled, for example. But ultimately, we're going to move ahead here to the visit section. This is where all the documentation for any encounter, right, whether it's a full-on plan of care or a simple progress note, all that information will be maintained here. Now, you do have the ability, and I apologize, I am in a test account right now, so there's some things that obviously haven't been completed here, but you can bring open the View Chart Notes feature, and it'll show you all the chart notes for this kiddo over time. Okay, so here we can see some changes over time in the progress note. We can observe that, of course, prior to maybe calling the kid back. All right, but when it's time to bring him back, you can either create a new chart note, which would be the progress note, or of course you can create a new visit. So more typically, the new visit would be more of your plan of care or larger report. I will say either method does get you into the patient visit screen. And once you're in the patient visit screen, once again, you can create your chart note directly here, your progress note right here. You don't have to go through that link I showed before. That link just saves you a few clicks, okay? But you still have access here as well. And certainly there are going to be instances where you're creating a plan of care and a progress note, right? So that's all contained within the visit. So just kind of the mental concept of the visit is that in CounselEAR, it means any documentation you need for that encounter with the patients, and whether it's full reports, progress notes, or all the above. Okay, so we're going to start here by jumping over to the professional report tab. As I'm sure you probably have already noted, there are a series of audiology-related areas in CounselEAR. Of course, you would just ignore anything related to audiogram, and you go right to the history section. Okay. Now the history section, this is something where there oftentimes are some templates in place, but due to the fact that the wording, the basic details of, let's say, a 3-year-old's history tends to be highly specific. This area tends to be a little bit more direct entry. So you would either type it in. This system is also compatible with voice dictation systems. So if you use that, you can get the kiddo's history in place. Okay, if you find that there are commonalities where you tend to be writing the same sentences for the case history, those can very easily be built as statements. So for example, if we want to click here, we can see here is just a preset template that fills in some of this information, right? So that way it can save you some time, reduces the need to have to, proofread everything if you've already approved that language. Okay, let's move on to the results section here. In the results section, similar idea, except for there are a lot more templates in place because the results tends to be more standardized, right? We're talking about standardized testing, of course. So let's go to just a few of these here. And as I click, let's say on this one, what you'll notice is it right away added a whole bunch of text to the top text box here. Now, by the way, this text box can be expanded, and you'll likely want to do this, either set it to medium or large, so you can see more of the report in one go. I'm just going to move it to medium. It'll tell me I need to reload the page, so I'm going to go ahead and click Save, Continue Editing. The next time you work with a report on that same computer, you won't have to do that step. This is just sort of an initial, expand the screen, and it'll remember it going forward. But you can see, obviously, we can see more at this point here. You also notice there's yellow areas. These are called placeholders. That's where CounselEAR will actually fill in the information for you, so you're not having to type the patient's first name. Or there are loads of templates, placeholders in place. So for example, you don't have to worry about pronouns. right? Those can be built into the template. So there's a whole range of information that can be entered. And much of that already is in placeholder format within many of these templates. But beyond that, we can work with you to modify any of these templates to make them fit your needs better. Okay, I'll show you a few more of these in just a moment here. I do want to highlight though, there is another version of the placeholder. That's the replace placeholder. That's basically saying, hey, we're anticipating that you're going to need to enter some data there. But just so you know, you don't have to like search for this and try to make sure that, oh, did I catch everything? It's nice and obvious that this is where that data needs to go. So as you get more comfortable with the templates, you just know this will autofill. I need to add some data here, and we move forward. Okay, but you're not having to once again type or voice dictate or cut and paste all this text. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a few more here. So let's go ahead and Okay, and one thing you'll notice as we go through this is that some of these are also pretty complicated templates, right? So here's an example with the Goldman Fristo where it actually has the full table in place. Okay, so we can see you could use this as your recording mechanism either during or probably more likely after the testing period. So you could document that all in one place. Now, when it comes to just simple text, things like that, these templates can be modified. So you could jump in there and make a change either for this report, of course, or for the standard templates going forward. When it comes to modifying tables, that tends to be a type of thing we would help you with. So you reach out to us and let us know what adjustments you want made, and we'll go from there. Okay. All right, so that's essentially the results section. As we move on, of course, to the recommendations, it's going to be more of a list format, right? So you don't have to number them. You're simply going to click or tap on whatever it is. I'm just going to pick a few here just for kicks. Whatever it is you want added. Once again, these are all highly customizable so that you don't have to go in and type in, your name, the clinic's phone, your email. That will automatically populate there. Okay, so here's just some test ones. You also could type in something on the fly, and that would could also be added to the ongoing list. Now, if this list is out of order, that's perfectly fine. When I jump back to the main screen, we'll see that there's our case history. There is the results, so we can see the various tests. Now, the yellow placeholders have filled in with the information, whereas the red replace hasn't. So if you get to this point and say, whoops, I need to jump back in here and add some things. Okay, we can see the full table. Obviously, we didn't complete that, but when we scroll down, then we can get to the recommendations. And if we need to, we can move these around. Okay, using the blue arrows. At any point, of course, you can jump in and make edits or add new ones. There's also another section we call the custom section. And this also has some templates, and it can have as many templates as you want. The focus here is to give you the opportunity to be a little more creative with where you put information on the report. So if you're looking at that and saying, okay, well, history results or recommendations, that doesn't, I need something else, right? You can put this custom section anywhere you want. You can title it whatever you want, and you can put it anywhere you want. So at the very top of the report, but before the results, before the recommendations, etc., or at the very bottom. You can decide where this information is going to display, and some of it just depends on what the information is. If it's a summary, maybe it's the very top or the very bottom. If it's specific another data set that you want to insert someplace else, then you do that as needed. Okay. I should mention that each of the areas we looked at, the history, results, and recommendations, the names for those sections can also be modified on the fly as well. So if you don't want to go by history, results, recommendations, that's perfectly fine. You can modify that as needed. Okay. But once again, this is another area where you would just simply click. And here's an example of a table that was created, for functional communication measures. Let's go back to the main screen, and right now we'll be able to see all the information that we've created thus far. Okay, there we go. Of course, we can also add in a referring physician or facility if needed. So we go ahead and click here on Edit Referral. Counselor will have all those referral sources in place. So you have the ability to simply just click on the name, and I see someone created one for Doctor Who, which so this is a test account. This would have your full list of of physicians and facilities. So you click on the name, it would fill the information in, and then you can decide what you want displayed on the fax cover sheet, right? Do you want a cover letter? And if so, what version of cover letter do you want to use? So these are all things that CounselEAR can work with you on to build these templates so that you're not having to manually create this on the fly. That you can pull from templates, it'll autofill through placeholders, and you can get your reports not only finished quickly, but accurately, of course. So I pointed out there where you can add a referral source. You also could send this to as many additional recipients as you want. Obviously, there are going to be times when you need to send this off to, let's say, the school district. And within the school district, there are 4 recipients. And you need to send it to the parents. And you need to send it to the primary physician and an ENT, right? That process can get pretty drawn out if you're trying to get out that all that done at one time. You can start, by going to the additional recipients. You can choose the recipient and just keep adding them. So you'd add another one. And you'd say, okay, maybe you want different cover letter language for the school psychologist than you do for the PT where you're sending this to as well. So you can then add as many recipients as you want. So you can then continue to build that. And each report will be directed to that recipient. So the cover letter will be directed to them, for example. So you don't have to go in and finesse it, even though you're sending it out to multiple parties. Okay. You also can add attachments. So if there's anything that needs to be attached to a report, if you already have it, let's say saved to a computer, you can browse and you can upload it. You also could use the direct scan feature. So you put it on the scanner or in the feeder tray, it pulls it straight in and adds it as an attachment to that report. CounselEAR also has a Snapshot app, or it's an app that's available for Android and Apple devices, smartphones and tablets, and it enables you to take a picture of whatever it is you want to capture, and that will load, in this case, as a report attachment. So maybe if you don't have a scanner handy, but you need to capture an image of a form or something, you could snap that image, and then it will add it to the report as well. Okay, it'll also add the patient name, date of birth, date of service, and page 4 of 4, for example. So it automatically makes it HIPAA compliant then as well. Okay. The last thing I want to show here is that you do also have the ability to modify how these reports look. So you can decide, for example, what the title of the report is. If there's a, the date label, for example, just a small thing you can change. Margins, font size. So if you're rolling over to another page, for example, and you'd rather maybe keep it to 1 or 2 pages or something, you could modify the font and/or document margins, kind of kick the tires on that, see what you like. You can also add additional signatures. So if you're working, let's say, with a student or just a co-tester, you could add that secondary person in and add their signee in, so that you have 2 signatures on the same report if you want. Okay, just to show you what this report looks like, let's have a peek here. Scroll back to the top. Let's go ahead and click on the profession report, and that's going to show us what we've done so far. Now the report itself, you'll see, will have the CounselEAR logo, but this would have your logo and your information, of course. You can see, because I had put that functional communication measures in the custom section, so put it at the very top. Then we have our history of results, and as we go through now, we can see our Goldman-Fristow table, which continues on here, and then finally gets to the recommendations and signatures, or signature in this case, I should say. Okay. So that's the kind of quick and dirty on how you would, in the first place, just simply create your report. It's the same idea for chart notes. It's a template-based system, so you can create templates once again for your chart notes. If there's daily notes you want to have, for example, just kind of whatever you want in this area, or you could type or voice dictate in this area as well. Okay. Jumping back to the main screen, a larger concept, of course, is, okay, great, I've created my plan of care, or I've created my initial evaluation report, I've created my progress note. Obviously, those are 3 different things. Maybe they happen all at once or different times. But the point is, at some point, you're probably going to see that kid again, and you need to really kind of take that original report and update it. The way that would work is that let's spoof this a little bit in here. Let's say that this visit happened November 1st. Okay, so we're going to backdate this a little bit. And actually, I apologize. Before I do that, I should point out one other thing here. You also can have all your codes in CounselEAR as well. Or, you can basically pop in here and say, okay, what are my diagnosis codes? So I'm going to go ahead here, and you could either, look through the codes. There's a ton of, obviously, audiology, but a ton of speech pathology codes as well. Or you can simply start typing it in. So if you know the code, you type that in. Or if you know the descriptor that goes along with it, you can start to type that in as well. So let's just use an F8081. And then that will add the code in place here. And of course, I can continue to add as many of these as once, so I'll just grab another one there for kicks. And then back to the main screen, and we'll be able to see those codes in place. Okay. As I was mentioning, when you need to essentially replicate this visit down the road, so now, like I said, we have this one available for November 1st. I'm going to go back to the patient's profile here. Let's say today's, a little later than November 1st, and we want to look back and we want to, like I said, replicate this visit. Well, I actually could go right into the November 1st visit, and without changing anything, I would just simply select Actions and then copy visit. Once again, this could be for a progress note. If you're seeing this kid twice a week or once a week, you just go back and maybe in that case, all you have is a progress note, a chart note in place. Or like I said, this is the plan of care, or maybe 6 months have gone by. Regardless, I'm going to go ahead and click Copy Visit. That will create a new visit with today's date, with all of the text and settings that I had from the previous visit, right? So this gives you the ability to say, okay, largely, things stayed the same. Now, this isn't a great example probably for plan of care, but just to get that idea in place, you would then be able to pop in and make those adjustments. So for example, let's look at, the recommendations, for example, or maybe you retested and you updated something, or at the very top we had the functional communication measures or those types of things. Maybe you need to update those. Point being is that you're not recreating the wheel, you're just taking what already was in place and updating it and moving forward from there. Okay. Now, if you ever need to send out reports from CounselEAR, you simply would go up to the top right-hand corner of the patient visit screen. You would select Actions and then Send Reports. And this will give you the ability, of course, to fax and email reports directly from CounselEAR. Now, for this visit, we haven't selected any recipients, so the only one, I forgot when I chosen Teddy Bear. It's a good patient name. The only option right now was the patient or somebody else. But if you had selected any recipients or additional recipients, then they would already be in the list, and it would show their preference for how they like to receive reports. So fax, email, snail mail, right? So if I want to send this report to, let's say, Teddy Bear, I can send the profession report and or the chart notes. The preference, if he already had a fax number in place, it would automatically show up here. Any fax or email that you send from CounselEAR goes all completely through CounselEAR, so you don't need any hardware or software to make that happen. You can simply click send. It will then send it out to the recipient. They receive it with their fax machine or in their email as they normally would. Okay, CounselEAR does have tracking on those faxes as well, so if the fax failed, you do get alerted, and there's also a dashboard widget, which we do review dashboard widgets in a different tutorial video, excuse me, that will show any faxes that have failed. Okay, so that's the process for creating reports, for duplicating them. We do encourage you to kind of kick the tires on this in practice and let us know if you have any questions. Of course, as I mentioned, the templates can be configured and modified to best fit your needs. Now, really briefly, I do want to show as well the process for creating appointments when you want to set up multiple. So I'm going to go ahead here and just say we're going to create an appointment for, let's just say Teddy. So I'll do a search for Teddy. I'll pick the type. Let's just say he's getting individual therapy. Referral source can be required or optional. And then the main thing here I want to point out is I'm going to click on the multiple individual events, and that will let me set up multiple appointments at the same time. But once I do this, these appointments are independent of each other. So if one of these lands on a holiday, well, then you can go ahead and reschedule that one or remove that one without affecting the others. Or if the the kid's mom just says, I know that Tuesday, that Wednesday, whatever's not going to work, let's go ahead and reschedule that right now. But if I go into Teddy's profile, and I could do that by just hovering over the appointment and redirecting back to his profile, and I look in the Appointments Visits tab, I can see all of those upcoming appointments. So there are the appointments we just created. Now let's say you do this and you create 20 for the kid, right? and then it turns out after the 6th one that you dismissed him, right? You made great progress or something. Well, then you have an option here where you can say, well, let's go ahead and delete some of these. You know, we don't actually need those, right? We'll keep those. And then just kind of en masse, you can go ahead and delete those. So even if you schedule out quite a ways, you schedule a lot of appointments, there's a quick way to manage that so you don't have to go in and one by one delete those appointments. The other real quick thing I wanted to show was within insurance, there is a way to track prior authorization. So I'm going to go into Teddy's policy here, so Medicaid. Towards the bottom, there is a section for prior authorizations where you can then store, obviously, an authorization number. You can have your start date, your end date, of course, and number of visits. Okay. Now, as it stands, this would be a manual process. So as you have additional, visits are kind of completed, then you would go and you'd update that number manually. We are looking to add that so it'll automatically detract a number each time that a visit occurs, but as it stands, that would be a manual process. Okay. So this is a pretty quick overview of the SLP specific features in Counselor. You'll see that in many of the other video tutorials or video training sessions, we go through a lot of other areas that are more common for both audiology and for speech. If you have any questions about this, please let us know. Just in general, with anything, any questions you have, we have our support channels. You can call us, you can email us, you can live chat us as well. So please let us know if you have any questions or if we can assist in any way. So thank you for joining us for the Counselor Complete OMS training series for speech pathology.